So in the winter time, it's hard to make a list or go through a season on the channel and not mention one of my favorite winter fragrances, which is Tobacco Vanille by Tom Ford. Well, today we're going to be taking a closer look at a fragrance that is an inspiration of that fragrance. It's called Powdery Tobacco by Dossier. I'm looking forward to giving you my thoughts on this really inexpensive alternative, so make sure to stay tuned. Now, before I begin today's episode and I tell you all about this inspiration of Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille, it's called Powdery Tobacco by Dossier, and I'm going to go as far as telling you how close I think it is to the original, what it smells like, the notes, the performance, if I think they did a pretty accurate job. But first, I want to mention that if you're a fan of fragrance-related content, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Hit that bell icon so you can be notified whenever I do upload future videos to the channel. And of course, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, or if you took something of value from today's episode. It would really mean a lot to me. So I love Tobacco Vanille, one of my first Tom Ford private blends. I think it was my first one. And then eventually I got Tuscan Leather, Noir de Noir, Oud Wood, and then I got into the blue collection, right, with Neroli Portofino and Costa Azzurra, so on and so forth. Well, Powdery Tobacco, I love Tobacco Vanille. This fragrance has tobacco, ginger, apricot, honey, vanilla, and cocoa. In the base, you have tonka bean, dry fruits, and blonde woods. The concentration on this one is 18%, which for many brands would be considered eau de parfum strength. And I think with Tom Ford kind of raising their prices seemingly on an annual basis, it makes a lot of sense for the frugal consumer to consider something like this versus paying, a few $100s for a 50 ml bottle. In any case, I sprayed it, I wore it, I did a side by side. I'm ready to tell you how it smells. Let's take a quick look at the presentation. Now, in the opening of this fragrance, I have to tell you, I thought to myself, this is Tobacco Vanille. And I initially was a bit of a skeptic because whenever some of the denser, darker, heavier fragrances are being recreated, I kind of feel like it's not as accurate as perhaps some of the lighter, fresher ones, or the ones that have been cloned ad nauseum, something like a Santal 33 or a Creed Aventus or a Baccarat Rouge. But here we have a fragrance where, yes, some interpretations do exist on the market, but this one brings it so darn close to the original. And it's really, really impressive to say the least. Now, the first thing you're going to smell from this, for me, is the cinnamon. And I kind of get like this cinnamony sweet vibe from it. And I know a lot of times, especially in my previous videos, I mentioned how it kind of smells like a cherry moistened tobacco, kind of like a pipe tobacco. And I love just how natural, true to form, and organic it smells. It definitely, conjures up some of the Cavendish tobacco that my grandfather would have in his armoire when we used to live over in Athens, Greece. And so I know what tobacco smells like. I've been around it much of my life. Although I'm not a smoker myself per se, I do know what it smells like and I'm quite familiar with it. This fragrance opens up with that natural smell, and I personally love it. It's gently spiced, not too much going on in there to make it super bold or daring or aggressive. It's actually quite easy to wear. I think there are some darker private blends from Tom Ford, like Vert d'Essence, for example, and perhaps even Cherry Smoke, which is one of their newer releases. I hope to cover that one very soon. But here we have a really, really solid alternative for Tobacco Vanille. So yes, the vanilla is spiced. There's a little bit of apricot, giving it that fleshy, fruity, saccharine vibe in the opening. You also have a little bit of cocoa that lends it a bit of sweetness that works in harmony with that sort of vanilla tonka bean combination. Now, when we're talking about the side-by-side, right? Because I think that's what most people are really interested in. It's really hard to put a numerical percentage on it and say it's 92% similar, 98% similar. I don't have a mass spectrometer. I can't reverse engineer it in my house and look at a lab analysis and tell you how close it is. What I can say is that it conjured the same exact memories for me. It is, honestly, I'm smelling it and I'm thinking I'm smelling Tobacco Vanille. The only thing I will say though, and I think this speaks more to the fact that I've had my bottle of Tobacco Vanille since like 2012, so I've had it for like 11 years now. Tobacco Vanille is a bit spicier. And I actually have it right here because I literally just finished doing the side-by-side like 25 minutes ago. This smells a little bit spicier, a little bit sweeter and richer in terms of the amber. But again, when you've had a bottle for so many years and it's been left to macerate, some of the natural vanilla actually does become sweeter and stronger. The oxidation process does that to it. It's a known fact in the scientific community. So, or in the chemistry world as it pertains to fragrance is what I meant to say. So, powdery tobacco, this is a brand new, newly manufactured fragrance. I assume it will achieve that same density, if you will, if I let this on my shelf for, a decade, right? I'm hoping to not do that. I'm hoping to actually wear through it this year and next year. I can't quite possibly wear through the entire thing this year or even in a couple of years just because I own so many fragrances, but amazingly close interpretation of Tobacco Vanille. And even as I was swinging my hands like this, I'm getting whiffs of it and it's wonderfully done. Quite amazing. If you own this and you're a frugal consumer and you don't want to spend too much money, trust me, this one will leave you feeling satiated. It does the job perfectly. Let's go ahead and finish things off with my overall assessment. So first up, in terms of the uniqueness and the overall smell, well, of course it is an inspiration, so it's not unique. But in terms of the overall smell, it smells amazing. I have loved Tobacco Vanille for over a decade now. And as soon as I smelled this, I was like, yep, smells like Tobacco Vanille. Incredibly close. Super satisfied with it. Longevity on this one was about 8 hours on my skin. Projection was a solid hour of radiating beyond an arm's length. It became an elbow's length scent right around hour 6, skin scent right around hour 8. In terms of the versatility, perfectly unisex, I think. I think a lot of people would argue that it leans a little bit masculine on account of the tobacco and the spices, but I think it's perfectly unisex if we're being honest. It has enough of that sweetness there. Great for formal occasions. Because of the price, I suppose you can wear this one casually as well. I don't know if this would be the best office scenario type of a fragrance. Something like a Mandarino di Amalfi or Neroli Portofino. I know Dossier does have their own version of Neroli Portofino, so you might want to consider checking that one out for a good office type fragrance. This one would probably cater to the sentiments of somebody who's a little bit older, a bit of an older demographic, somebody who has a little bit more experience with niche fragrances. And in terms of the seasons, great for the fall and winter. Presentation, really affordable presentation, keeps the cost low. I do like the transparency on this insert, this card here that is included inside every box. My final verdict on Powdery Tobacco by Dossier is it is nearly a carbon copy of Tobacco Vanille by Tom Ford. Of course, I am comparing it to an 11-year-old bottle here, and I'm not even sure when it was manufactured. Could be older than 11 years old, so it's really hard to draw a clear comparison. But I will say this smells so remarkably close to the original Powdery Tobacco. Get your nose on it if you're interested. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate the viewership and the support. It means a lot to me. As always, if you took something of value from today's episode, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Hit the bell icon so you can be notified whenever I do upload future videos to the channel, and give this video a thumbs up. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.